For the first 6 decades of Israel's existence, the nation lived with a strategic nightmare. It was, really an island of scarcity, surrounded by neighbors sitting on vast oceans of oil and gas, while Israel itself had, well, virtually none. Golda Meir, the former prime minister, once joked, "Let me tell you something we Israelis have against Moses. He led us through the desert for 40 years, just to bring us to the one place in the Middle East with no oil." That line wasn't just humor. It pointed to a real vulnerability. The country depended entirely on imported coal and oil. In a region shaped by conflict, relying on others for your energy is a dangerous gamble. One blockade, one sanction, and the lights go out. Then, everything changed. In just 15 years, Israel pulled off one of the fastest infrastructure transformations in modern history. It didn't build a single structure, but a vast, interconnected machine worth roughly $30 billion, made up of offshore giants, underground pipelines, and canals cut through the desert. Israel uncovered a massive energy reserve beneath the sea. It carved high-speed rail tunnels through sacred mountains. It built deep-water ports that ignited a quiet spy rivalry between the United States and China. And it even began engineering a way to slow the death of the Dead Sea. Today, we're diving into the engineering, the politics, and the sheer audacity behind these projects. This is the story of how a nation engineered its escape from scarcity, and in the process, reshaped the balance of power in the Middle East. The transformation began with a discovery geologists once thought impossible. In 2010, deep seismic scans revealed a massive anomaly beneath the Mediterranean seabed. Drilling confirmed it. They had found Leviathan. Leviathan is a gas field of staggering scale, around 600 billion cubic meters of natural gas. That's enough to power Israel for 40 years. But honestly, finding it was the easy part. The field sat 130 kilometers offshore, beneath 1,500 meters of water and then several more miles of rock. Extracting it required building a monumental structure at sea. The Leviathan platform is a marvel of maritime engineering. It stands 10 kilometers offshore. It doesn't float. Instead, it's anchored to the seabed by massive steel legs known as a jacket. The topside alone weighs 25,000 tons, the equivalent of 3 Eiffel Towers. The logistics behind its construction were global in scale. The topsides weren't built in Israel. They were actually fabricated in Texas, on the other side of the world. From there, they were loaded onto the largest barges ever built, shipped across the Atlantic, through the Strait of Gibraltar, and into the Mediterranean. When they arrived, they were met by Sleipnir, the largest crane vessel on Earth. Battling open sea swells, the crane lifted the 25,000-ton deck and lowered it onto the legs with, honestly, millimeter-level precision. One mistake would have sent billions of dollars and years of work straight to the ocean floor. But this platform has something most oil rigs don't: defense. Because it powers the entire country, Leviathan is a prime military target. The platform is equipped with its own sensors and protected by Israel's Navy using specialized SAR-6 corvettes armed with Sea Dome, the naval version of the Iron Dome missile defense system. It is, quite literally, a fortress at sea. Energy became the first pillar. Trade was the second. And that, well, leads to the most controversial grand structure in Israel: the expansion of Haifa port. Haifa is Israel's gateway to the world. But the old port was just too shallow for modern megaships. An upgrade was absolutely essential, and Israel didn't want to finance it alone. So, the government opened an international tender. The winner, surprisingly, was China. A Chinese state-owned company, SIPG, secured the contract to build and operate the new Bayport terminal for 25 years. They installed these massive automated cranes, dredged the harbor to 17 meters, and deployed a high-tech automated logistics system. From an engineering perspective, it was a real success. The port can now handle the largest ships on Earth, supercharging Israel's trade capacity. Geopolitically, however, it was an earthquake. The U.S. Navy, whose Sixth Fleet frequently docks in Haifa, was honestly alarmed. Washington feared that a Chinese-operated port just meters away from American warships could enable surveillance or intelligence gathering. Israel was forced into a delicate diplomatic balancing act. Special override clauses were written into the contract, allowing the Israeli government to take immediate control of the port during a national emergency. It was a stark reminder that in the world of grand infrastructure, a port is never just a port. It's leverage. While Israel was transforming the sea, engineers faced a totally different obstacle on land geography. Connecting Tel Aviv on the coast to Jerusalem in the mountains with a high-speed rail line seemed nearly impossible. The elevation change is severe. The terrain is, frankly, unforgiving. And the engineering challenge was only just beginning. The solution was the A1 link, a 600-kilometer electrified rail network. But to keep the tracks flat enough for high-speed trains, engineers couldn't go over the mountains. They had to go straight through them. Massive tunnel boring machines, TBMs, were deployed to carve out 38 kilometers of tunnels. Bridge number 10, the longest bridge in Israel, stretches 1.2 kilometers across the valley. But the true crown jewel of the line is its endpoint, the Yitzhak Navon station in Jerusalem. When you step off the train in Jerusalem, you are 80 meters, about 260 feet, underground. It is actually one of the deepest heavy rail stations on Earth. Why so deep? Well, partly for engineering reasons, allowing the line to enter the city beneath existing buildings. But there is another purpose. Like many major structures in Israel, it serves two roles. The station is designed to double as a hardened bunker, capable of sheltering up to 2,000 people during wartime. Its ventilation systems are built to filter chemical agents. It is really a grand structure of transportation, embedded inside a grand structure of survival. But one grand structure remains unfinished, the Red Sea-Dead Sea Conveyance. The Dead Sea is, an ecological anomaly, the lowest point on Earth, but it is shrinking rapidly. Water diversion from the Jordan River causes the sea level to fall by more than a meter each year. Sinkholes are swallowing roads and resorts. The Dead Sea is literally disappearing. The proposed fix may be the most ambitious engineering project in the Middle East, a 180-kilometer pipeline pumping water from the Red Sea, carrying it across the deserts of Jordan and Israel, and releasing it into the Dead Sea. On paper, it looks like a perfect solution. In reality, it ran headfirst into chemistry. Scientists discovered that mixing the sulfate-rich waters of the Red Sea with the calcium-heavy waters of the Dead Sea would create gypsum. The result could turn the iconic blue waters milky white, or worse, trigger massive red algae blooms. Combined with political tensions between Israel and Jordan, the project is now stalled. A grand structure that exists in theory, trapped by chemical limits and bureaucratic paralysis. So in the end, we have to ask, what was all of this for? Why spend $30 billion? The answer lies in Ashkelon. Thanks to gas from Leviathan, Israel has built a major petrochemical industry, converting natural gas into plastic polymers and exporting around $2 billion worth each year. But the real transformation is gas diplomacy. Israel now exports gas to its neighbors, Egypt and Jordan. Consider the history of this region. These countries were once at war. Today, their power grids are physically connected. Jordan's electricity depends on Israeli gas. Egypt's LNG terminals process Israeli gas for shipment to Europe. This is the true objective of these grand structures: infrastructure peace. The idea that when nations trade billions of dollars in energy and water, they become less willing to fire missiles at one another. It is interdependence cast in steel and concrete. Israel's transformation is a case study in sheer determination. In less than a generation, it engineered its way out of an existential crisis. Scarcity became surplus. But grand structures are never just concrete. The railway triggered land disputes. The port sparked a rivalry between superpowers. The gas platforms require naval protection. and the Dead Sea Canal remains unrealized. These projects show that infrastructure can create power. But in the Middle East, every new pipe, track, and port is a move in a four-dimensional chess game involving geology, politics, and war. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more.